Big announcement to start with at the top of the show here. 3DMJ has just released Case Study Q&A Volume 3, a contest prep virtual seminar, as part of the 3DMJ Vault, which is our mostly free online education platform. This particular collection of videos was recorded in December 2017, while all 5 of us coaches were here in Austin, Texas, and had the chance to address audience questions in a panel-style discussion. So the 5 of us sat on a couch, pressed record, and gave some extremely detailed responses to a handful of queries surrounding the topic of contest prep. If you'd like to see one of those longer videos for free, you can do so at 3dmjvault.com. Just click on Case Study Q&A 3, enter your email, and get access to a 22-minute discussion where the team talks all about peaking for show day. You'll also get linked to a few additional resources surrounding that topic as well if you wanted to dive in even further. And if you're one of the few thousand people who's already a member of the 3DMJ Vault, just log in as usual, and you'll see this new course and its free stuff waiting for you whenever you're ready to view it. Again, 3dmjvault.com, and you'll see detailed descriptions and full table of contents for all of our 7 courses, 3 of which are completely free, and the rest have at least parts of them for free. So head on over there and check it out. Hey 3DMJers, this is Andrea Valdez, and you're listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. Today I'm talking to Eric Helms and Brad Loomis all about nutritional supplementation. Before we get into it, I'm going to start off with a little disclaimer here that might save a lot of you some time if you aren't a usual listener to our show. No, we're not going to tell you what supplements to take in this episode. No, we're also not going to recommend any specific companies or products in this episode. However, we're also not going to just sit here and tell you that any and all supplements are complete bullshit either. What you will hear from us in this one is an in-depth discussion on the importance of supplementation, our take on the industry as a whole, and how this arm of athletic culture has impacted our lives on a personal level, both as athletes and coaches. At the end of our conversation, you're going to hear the recording come to what seems like an abrupt stop, simply because we had some technical difficulties at the end of our Skype call recording. So instead of you guys having to listen to crappy audio while we do our usual summary of takeaways, you'll actually hear my voice come back in to close this episode out on the team's behalf. I'll be outlining some of the main points of our discussion and listing off a few websites and resources you can check out if you want to learn more about this topic. As always, let us know what you think of the show at 3dmusclejourney.com or at youtube.com/team3dmj and leave it under podcast number 86. Here is my conversation all about supplements with Brad Loomis and Eric Helms. Okay, so Brad brought this up, this topic of supplements, right? And you're right, we haven't talked about it. And at the same time, I think it's sort of a good thing because when we think, what do people, or not what do they want? We think, what should we talk about that's really valuable? And out of 80 episodes, we never talked about supplements. So I think that starts us off with our generally how we feel about their necessity. Would you agree, Eric?
No more than 1/80th of the importance of what you should pay attention to as a bodybuilder. So basically, you don't need to listen to this episode. You can just turn it off.
Yeah. So actually, thanks for this 2-minute podcast. Thanks for joining us on the.
Yeah, and until next time.
No. Okay, so then why is it worth mentioning if it's so unimportant? Why are we doing this podcast?
I think it's worth mentioning because a lot of people put it into a much higher level of importance. So they spend a lot more effort and time on it. And sometimes it can be problematic. I think when I first got exposed to bodybuilding early on, because bodybuilding is so in bed with the supplement industry, I didn't think of the pyramid with its 5 levels of nutrition that I presented, back in 2013 or 2012. I thought of there's these 3 equal pillars. There's training, nutrition, and supplementation. And they're all equally important. You got to get them all sorted. And if you replace the word supplementation with drugs and you're talking about enhanced bodybuilders, that might be close to true. But even then, I actually don't think it's important as genetics, hard work, and nutrition and training. But yeah, I think when you're under the mistaken impression that supplements are incredibly important, it can result in a lot of wasted money. And I think I think also if you see supplements as important, that means you're also somewhat a little more victim to the kind of marketing that supplements have.
Mm,
You know,
okay.
the whole gain 3 inches on your arms in 16 weeks type of thing. And I think that results in you chasing things that are unrealistic. Like you're going to use a weight gainer and get fat. You know, you're going to use hydroxycut or whatever the equivalent is now. I know it's not 2005 anymore. And and you know, try to diet way too quickly. And it's going to lead you towards practices that aren't directly related to supplements, but thinking that things happen a lot faster than they really do.
Man.
Yeah, and that's exactly why, I remember way back in the day why I even started taking them. When I
Hmm.
started training like in my mid 20s, I just remember going to the gym and working hard, and it was kind of like, wow, this feels really good. I'm getting strong really fast, and I'm looking a little bit better. And then, lo and behold, look, there's a Jason Sehorn commercial where he's eating Metrix protein bars, and Jason Sehorn was shredded and athletic and fast and strong. And I'm like, wow, maybe that'll speed things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the bottom line. It's like, well, if I can get there at 10 miles an hour, I'm going to take all these fantastic and wonderfully marketed supplements, and I'm going to be going there at 20 miles an hour, and it's going to double the results. And I think that's kind of the mystique, and the intrigue, and, what makes people think that, that it's going to get them there faster.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's always that bubble that's burst, at some point.
I used to think I wasn't taking it seriously if I wasn't taking all my supplements. Like
Yeah.
even when I like when I started with Berto, even we didn't start my prep till 2013, but we had like our intro phone call in like November of 2012. Like it was a couple months before. And I was taking, I still had protein powders in my life, which I took out during the last prep because I was like, no powders, all food. And I haven't really started, I'm just not a protein shake kind of person. But at the time I was, because I needed that after I worked out because window. So, but I also took like CLA. What were the other dumb things I took? I would take, is it arginine pre-workout because veins? And then I would take,
Mhm.
I don't know, there's like 4 or 5 things that I would spend quite a bit of money on for like no reason. And it was like, that was a large part of my budget.
Mhm.
There was like 10 fucking things on the counter all the time, and when one would run out, I would do whatever I needed to go get that filled that day. This is before Amazon did everything, so I would go to the natural grocers for this. These couple things I get from Walmart. These other ones I had a special order from Bivalent.com. And then I would, oh shit. And during my first prep, I would wake up, red line BCAAs, and then go walk dude, red line. I weighed like 120 pounds, and that's like a serving of red line is, I don't know, I'm surprised my heart didn't explode, is all I'm trying to say. Like it was fasted, little girl having a full bottle of red line, and I think a serving, I didn't realize till later, was like half a bottle, and I was like, Jesus Christ. But whenever I remember, the biggest problem was, right, like I'm in grad school. I'm like financially drowning once school ends, and like I know spending 3 digits on supplements I can't explain that to my mom, but like if I don't take these, I'm going to lose any progress I've made. And never mind the fact
Yeah.
that like I started a prep, so I was obviously training twice a day. I was not eating a lot, but it must have been the red line and the CLA. Like it was hard to disconnect it, just on that scientific. Like if I within a year changed 10 variables within my life to get this way, when actually the 2 or 3 that mattered, or that there's only 2 or 3 that mattered, but I was scared to take away the other 7.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, some of the things we teach don't stop the madness. Like what I mean is that like scientific literacy doesn't necessarily stop the madness, because there's been so many studies out there that you could find like one little nugget of scientific validity. It might be in a in vitro rodent model, but nonetheless, like hey, there's a chance. Like they cut off this little poor rat's soleus, and then they skinned the muscle and put it in a petri dish, and they added this to it, and it contracted harder than it did at baseline. So it might help me. I don't know. Why not? It's just money.
Yeah.
And I think that plus the idea that, like you said, um, okay, even if I do know it's only giving me a small benefit, if I'm a serious bodybuilder, a serious athlete, then I'm going to take every single one of those small benefits.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then I'm not working as hard as I can. So then that's why even when I was, I'd say I was still pretty damn scientifically literate. I was like a follower of Lyle McDonald and reading stuff by Alan Aragon, and I would look like the first thing I would do when I would find out about a supplement is I'd look to see if there's any research supporting it. But I had such a low bar for what I would consider like quote unquote research supporting it that I was taking a fuck ton of stuff for the longest time and a bunch of stuff that really did nothing based on what I know now. So it's not scientific literacy that really changes that behavior, and it's not even knowing that supplements don't do much. I think it really comes down to the kind of intrinsic value we all have that's probably partially supported by supplement marketing of believing there is a magic bullet, believing that there is something over the hill that if I can just get there, it's going to unlock some new gains. And I think it also comes down to sometimes a lack of self-efficacy. So there's been research where people who, like, you can have different levels of placebo effect depending on how much someone like believes in the supplement and doesn't necessarily have self-belief, because it's getting something that you can't get internally, externally. Like, I can't believe that I can do it, so I've got to put it in this thing that I'm putting in my body, which I think is some really intriguing research. And, obviously the solution is not to be like, oh, I don't have, self-belief, so I'm just going to buy shit that doesn't do anything so I can have it for the 6 weeks I take it. The solution is to A, let go of the idea that there is always this grass is greener, step over the hill and going to have noob gains again. And then B, letting go or gaining the self-confidence and knowledge to know that if you put, work into your training and nutrition and are consistent and play the long game, that you will get a lot of results. But I think that's much easier said than done.
Yeah, especially that cusp of from newbie gains to what you think is plateauing when you're actually just getting better at lifting. And at this, and I think the time thing there is like it was coming fast, now it's not. And like you said, like just put the work in, but at the same time people when like I remember that cusp and like, yes, I'm putting the work in, but I feel like it's not enough. Like this much work had this much results. I don't have time to do any more work. And this might help, like Brad said, the miles per hour thing. Like it's not that I don't think I could ever do it. It's that I don't want this to slow down. I don't know. It's kind of what we talked about in the last one, like the need is so big like when we talked about loneliness and the way that we felt as far as like this is so important and nobody understands it. It's like there's that weird time in I feel like everyone's bodybuilding career where it feels so important to do everything right. And that's the time I feel like when we do the dumbest stuff.
Yeah, it's so ironic. You don't know what right is. You don't know.
Yeah.
You haven't learned enough about yourself. You damn sure aren't a good enough student of the sport. And unless you somehow got through a PhD in nutrition and exercise physiology without being interested in exercise and then started training, you don't have any like the adequate scientific literacy to really know what is perfect, Not that it's that complicated, but so you're right. Like you're totally focused on doing everything right, yet you're making more mistakes than you ever will in the rest of your career for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
like
I remember.
Go ahead, go Brad.
Well, I was just going to say, I just remember when I remember when certain substances got banned, but way back when when I started competing, like ephedra, that wasn't banned yet, and there were certain pro hormones that weren't banned yet, and not knowing the, kind of scale of diminishing returns, the longer that you train, naturally, when I started getting less results, it was because these certain supplements that I was taking before, I can't take anymore, right? And it was the supplements that really got me, where I was, where I was getting stronger and where I was getting more shredded. And now I can't take those anymore because they've been banned, and that was, in my opinion, why I wasn't getting the same results anymore. It's because I couldn't take those supplements anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing that, well, you know what, when I started taking those, I was barely 3-4 years old in the gym, and now here it is. It's like I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old in the gym. And it just made my belief in supplements even more steadfast, that's the reason. And if you take those, and you're allowed to take those, it is going to help you that much, and then through further education, it made me realize, wow, that was, that was the most minuscule part of the reason why I got those diminishing returns, and I think a lot of people, that's how they start out. They start out like a lot of us. I want to look better. I want to feel better, and I know that weight training is going to help that, and so they start weight training not really knowing about, physiology and the adaptation that comes along with that. And they kind of jump in feet first, kind of naive, like I did. And yeah, pretty soon, what can I do to make things faster? And you are taking every supplement that you can afford and that you can budget for,
Yeah, I had the exact same experience. I started lifting weights in like July 2004. And I had great gains for 6 months. I put on 20, 25 pounds without really any change in my body fat percentage. And then when it started to slow down, and it's like early 2005, if I look back at my history from 2005 to like mid 2006, like that year and a half period is when I had like a pill case this big, when I was taking all kinds of shit. And it's just exactly what you said. Like I would make small alterations to my training and nutrition within what I knew and what I was comfortable, what I thought was what a bodybuilder powerlifter was supposed to do. And it just wasn't resulting in that same kind of gains. So then I would be like, all right, I'm going to change this. And I would just add this on. Like, okay, it wasn't enough. Well, maybe I add that. And I was like, I looked up and one day I've got like tribulus terrestris, like long jack, fenugreek, and like all kinds of just everything that doesn't do anything. And even getting things that I like didn't know nearly enough about that ended up biting me in the ass later. Like as I've talked about before, the few weeks here and there where I used prohormones that I would later go to find out precluded me from competing in certain natural organizations for either 2 or more years. And I think that's an important thing to point out, because there is this fallacious belief, in my opinion, that the worst thing that can happen is you're going to waste some money. But the reality is that the worst thing that can happen, you could actually end up taking something that you don't know much about, because it's not like supplements are well regulated in the U.S. That like Brad said, there was a time, it's I guess a little better now, I haven't really looked into it in a decade, but where you could get banned substances just at GNC or at bodybuilding.com, no problem. And when I say banned, I mean like banned by natural organizations, not necessarily illegal, obviously, as they weren't at the time. And even more than that, even if you're sticking to stuff that isn't banned, supplements are not always like that well researched, or like they worst case scenario, they're probably going to harm your performance or your progress if you take some things. Like D-aspartic acid, I tell this story a lot. It came out and it had literally one human clinical trial, and it wasn't in resistance training people. It was just dudes taking it, and they found, I think, like a 30 or 40% increase in endogenous testosterone production from taking D-aspartic acid. And literally everybody started jumping on it, and they were all taking it. There's some problems with the idea that kind of production increase in testosterone is going to do anything anyway. But so then some time passes and a study gets done where they're looking at people doing resistance training and taking it to see if it would increase muscle mass or strength. And of course, it didn't increase muscle mass or strength. So everyone's thinking, worst case scenario, I gave it a good shot and just wasted some money. Then a few months later, another study comes out and actually shows in that study that it decreased testosterone. So it, like, I don't know what the actual result is or in what conditions it does which, but we know like 1 out of 3, it shows an increase in a marker we don't actually care about. Like if you're a bodybuilder or a powerlifter, you care about being bigger or stronger or leaner, not having a higher number that you think is associated with those things that probably isn't until you're actually taking gear.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's not going to improve performance, and it might drop your testosterone also, like equal chances, 1/3 chance in each one. So it's not like you're just, when you make a decision on a supplement that's not well researched in terms of safety or efficacy, and it's got like one study on it, there actually is a potential for harm. Not to mention that there are some studies showing that supplements get contaminated with a surprising
Exactly.
level of, it happens, and
I got a story for that one too.
yeah, I mean, I personally know, and it's not worth calling them out because not everyone believes it when you hear about this, athletes who have had issues with banned substances, not because they actually took the banned substance, but because they weren't careful with the supplement provider. And we have peer-reviewed research showing that something like as high as 1 out of 10 in some cases, class of supplements have something in them that's not supposed to be there. So I think you're really gambling if you're taking like 50 supplements. There's a decent chance there's something you don't know that you're taking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, intentionally or not intentionally.
Yeah.
Really, because I mean, we have to kind of think about when supplements are made and created, it's usually the same equipment that is creating something else,
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that I've heard, things that there's cross-contamination between some supplements into other supplements. But yeah, just a funny story. I remember way back, it was probably 2005. Maybe I was going to take like a couple years off. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do a little bit more research into supplements, and since I can't take this and that anymore, maybe I'll find something else, And so I remember reading on the bodybuilding.com forums about Haladrol, which was made by Gaspari Nutrition. And I remember reading all these testimonials about, how Haladrol is just getting people jacked, and so I'm like, you know what, this is something I should kind of look into, and so I went ahead and made my purchase and got my Haladrol and started taking it and whatnot. And, really it didn't make that much of a difference. I don't remember it like making a game breaker, at least not like creatine did, Creatine, that one I still kind of believe in, and we'll talk about that more later. But I just remember thinking to myself, man, that was a lot of money. That was $75, and I took it just like they said. I even went so far as to do the training that Gaspari recommended so that I could get the maximum out of this, right?
Mm.
And I was like, gosh, that was really a waste of time and money, And then here, lo and behold, I want to say it was like a year or two later, it was rumored that some supplement companies, including this particular one, was actually tainting their supplements with, actual anabolic steroid compounds, so that it made it seem like this supplement was actually doing its job, was actually working, right? And so I was like, oh man, boy, I'm not going to mess with that one anymore. If that's indeed the case, and like at the time I remember thinking, I'm not going to compete now for another couple of years, so I'm probably okay. And wouldn't you know it, lo and behold, a couple of years later, I go into a polygraph, and they've got the list there that says, okay, have you taken any of these banned substances? Because as we all know, you don't say in the polygraph, oh, well, I've taken this and I haven't taken that. You just say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got the list there, have you taken any of these substances? You say no. Well, sure enough, there's that looks familiar, that word right there. And I had to go start searching up my bank records and things like that to kind of figure out when, if indeed I had taken it. Sure enough, I had taken a banned substance 2 years previously, didn't even know it, and couldn't compete in that show that I wanted to do.
Well, at least you were able to bring it up so you didn't like get a fail.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty scary.
So did you just not know it was banned at the time, or did you not even look it up?
Exactly. Yeah, I had no idea. I don't even think it was banned at the time.
Right.
And it was kind of one of those things where it became banned like a year or two later.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe it was because of these rumors, or maybe I think I do remember somebody saying that, like, chemically they couldn't tell the difference between this supplement and like an actual, steroid.
Right.
But that's all kind of hearsay, as far as that goes. Bottom line is it became a banned substance, and I couldn't compete that year because it'd been like, I don't know, like 18 months or 20 months or something like that, and I had to wait 24 months before I could compete in that organization again.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's when you said testimonials that like struck a chord with me, because like Eric said at the start of the podcast, like we think when you're new, right? So you decide I want to look this certain way. So you obviously Google bodybuilding, and obviously the first thing is bodybuilding.com. And because not because everything on there is the devil, but because their main business model is selling supplements, there's this trifecta. Everything is like, we're going to feature this athlete. So what's your training, nutrition, and supplementation? What is your training, nutrition, and supplementation? Do you have your training, nutrition? It's like, it's this 3-pronged approach on that website. And so and so that's just so common. It's such a big, like, no other bodybuilding website is even close in the amount of traffic, purchases, content. And so you have to assume that that's where everybody is freaking going first or something like that. And then you also assume that for the first however long, most people really think that these 3 things are that important when they're starting this journey. And obviously we know when you're starting this, you see the most changes. And therefore, all these testimonials come from people who are training and hopefully worrying about their nutrition for the first time very seriously in their lives while beginning supplements. So now they can write all these testimonials about how great this supplement is. And it's just so crazy. And I say that being someone who totally believed it for a long time. But it now, 5-6 years later, it's like, shit, this is how it happens. And there's really no, like you said, no stopping it, because that situation is still how it is now. So if my cousin, my friend at the gym, my whatever, like, there's a large percentage of people that if you care enough to start going to the gym every day, you've probably been to this website. You probably think it's a 3-pronged approach. And you probably have no idea how to dissociate and decipher, like, these results are from this. You just think, I do these 3 things now, and they're all equally important because all 3 of them contributed to me changing my life in this way. And it's real hard to, like, break that up. Because now I think we all see those very separately. You know, we and as coaches and someone who's been doing this a long time, you can even if you don't know exactly, like, day one what your problem is, if you're not progressing, you can at least over time, we know how to start evaluating and manipulating things in order to investigate why you might not be progressing or whatever. But at the time, like I said, we see it as these 3 parts of the fork, and it's just the way it is.
Yeah. And I remember, gosh, it's borderline deceitful, sometimes when you see these famous, bodybuilders that are pros in their respective organizations. And I remember at the time, way back in the 90s, seeing all these bodybuilders that were really well known. And, it was kind of understood that, oh, well, taking this is part of my program, and taking that as part of my program, and not even really realizing and knowing, well, you know what, that's a non-tester organization, and there's a lot more stuff that they're taking that is getting them looking like they are looking, besides, ripped fuel by such and such of a company, but at the time I didn't know that, I was like, well, I'm sure that if that's part of their regimen, if I can take that same supplement, that I'll eventually get, the same results. And so as a result, there's a certain amount of resent in me now.
Yeah, it sucks, huh?
Where it's like, God dang, they duped me, and it kind of makes me angry in a way.
Wait, are you saying Kai Green isn't 270 pounds because of muscle meds? It's something else? Like,
it's just his protein powder, really. That's all it is.
Back then, back in the 90s, that was me.
Well, everyone has to start naive. It's easy for someone listening to this to be like, idiot, but like, let's go back to the first 6 months you were lifting weights and getting into this. Like, we all were stupid, and that's when you get, like, I was just as dumb, and that's when we all get duped, and that's when we get. You're very susceptible at that time point because you want it fast. You're doing everything you can, at least in your brain, in terms of the gym and the kitchen. And
you want it bad.
And you're
Some
probably
people are very
messing
bad at
those
it.
up real bad at first.
Well, yeah, like I said, and as far as in your own brain, you're doing
Yeah.
turning your nutrition right. So the one thing that's easy to pull the trigger on is add to cart, or go to GNC and whip out your card, and it's very easy. So I think, yeah, I think I hope that, and I don't want to speak for you, Brad, that Brad and my experiences, especially as people who want to get into tested bodybuilding, um, can be a lesson to anyone who is not well versed in supplements and is taking more of a kind of, hey, well, worst case scenario, I could just put a dent in my wallet. To be a little more discerning, to educate yourself a little more, and to realize there are actual negative consequences. Because I remember in 2011 when the Muscle Mayhem changed hands as far as organization, still run by Bob and Tina, and it used to be in a federation that I was able to compete in. Because back in 2006, no big deal. You got to wait 2 years. Okay, 2008 onward, you can compete. But then the organization they switched to had banned what I had taken back in 2006 and 5 earlier. So it was actually a full 7-year ban. So I was like, oh shit, I can't compete until 2013. And it's 2011. And, all the rest of the 3DMJ coaches are going to do this show, or at least that was the plan at the time. Didn't work out that way anyway. But I always remember being heartbroken when I realized I couldn't do this show because of some dumbass naive mistake I made when I was like 22 or 23, back at that time over 5 years ago, so it was something that I didn't even fully realize the consequences until they came and bit me in the ass. So I think, yeah, I can't imagine it would have been like to actually sit in that polygraph room and realize on the day of or the day prior, oh my God, I can't compete in the show. So that must have sucked too, Brad. So.
Let's what was the word you said? You feel duped, you feel angry about it, you feel like resentful. I kind of feel like,
I think you also have to take personal responsibility too. Like
yeah.
that's one thing I've had to sit with. Like, I didn't do the research needed. I put stuff in my body without really fully understanding the long-term consequences. I didn't think of, well, how am I going to feel in 5-6 years? Like, am I going to be the, so I mean, I'm not trying to blame like, oh, they tricked me into taking pro hormones, like, no, I sat there, I to some degree, I knew I was taking it because it was a pro hormone, not because I thought it was something else, like, I definitely knew what I was doing. It's just, I didn't have the patience or presence of mind to think about, maybe you'll compete in like natural bodybuilding one day, or IPF powerlifting, or maybe, this is not something you actually believe in. Like, you're more interested in just seeing what you can achieve just based on your genetics and, plus all the modern supplements that we have that aren't pro hormones, but, within the context of being quote unquote a natural athlete. And, like, not that I think that shifted me to now I'm making unnatural gains forever, but it's just like, I didn't do things that were in line with my own beliefs because I hadn't really gone beyond the step of, oh my God, gotta have gains now. It was so knee-jerk and so kind of, it wasn't fully thought through, which is something you definitely should do when you're putting a substance in your body, for sure.
Yeah, but it's easy to be duped like Brad or whatever when that's, business makes the world go round. Like, that, it's just, like you said, it's not like it's their fault, but at the same time, it's like that's their intention, but it's not necessarily malicious. Like, we're gonna make everyone waste their money. It's more like, I started a supplement company because it's the people want it, which is true. Obviously, people want supplements. Obviously, we would like to be a successful business. Obviously, we, like, it's
got to make a living. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I know a lot of people think like business and capitalism and marketing and shit's evil, but it's all like in the perspective of like they're a business trying to make money. And maybe like, remember John Bossy, he was always, everything he's done with Barbell One was like in order to give back to the community. Like, maybe the intentions are really there, and maybe they are like Enron, some of them, I don't know, but it's just like, it's not always like malicious. I'm out to get people. It's just like, this is my company and I'd like to sell it. Therefore, we're getting really attractive people who look really great. to say they take this in, because when these people want to make money too, right? If you're an elite athlete, it's hard to work a whole lot, a 9-to-5 job, and do it. So obviously it's just like this magical partnership of businesses that ends up duping all these people when it's not always and necessarily the intention. It's just business, and it's like Eric said, it's like our responsibility to learn about that. It just takes some time.
As consumers.
And it's hard, yeah, but it's not anyone's fault necessarily, even though it feels like it. Like we might feel like, God, what an idiot. And we might feel like those companies are out to ruin everyone's lives. But
you're nicer than I think. I think there is a point where whether they realize whether they slipped over the line or they actually just physically went, yeah, we're going to do this, where they know that they oversold what the supplement can do.
True.
And I think,
but some don't know that. Like I can think of a lot of people. No, true. I think a lot do, but I don't think all.
I think, I would agree with that. I think when you're talking about some of the more bigger supplement companies, and they get a pro bodybuilder who is 5'6", 250 pounds, 9% body fat to promote a supplement as it's an integral part of their stack, they know you're going to associate the gains they've made with that. And that's intentional, and they're doing it to drive sales. And that's a very understandable decision to make from a business perspective. But I don't think ethics and business have to be like separate. And I think you can do it right.
Yeah.
And again, like, it's not like Brad and I are still buying from the same supplement companies today, because we're not long-term customers of someone who made us feel duped. You know, like the supplement companies that I will buy stuff or who send me stuff are all ones who their marketing is based on science, and it's based on, logic and honesty and being abreast of what we currently know about a given compound. So I think it's really cool that we've entered a bit of a new age where you can succeed as a supplement company with honest marketing. And there are definitely companies out there who do that and who focus on like what are the real valid ways we can know a supplement does something, versus just these casual associations with the very high level athletes, that who would never have done this if we hadn't paid them. So it's an understandable decision on the athlete side who doesn't really have an avenue to make money. It's an understandable decision from a purely business perspective if you take ethics out of it. But I think anytime you take ethics out of it, that, in my mind, I'm not like, oh, well, it's business. I'm going, oh, well, you're being unethical. And you happen to be a business,
I think, I think it's possible, right? I know we don't like arguing about the supplement industry, but like kind of, that someone, like, let's say I made money in real estate. Let's say I have this money, right? And I enjoy working out. And I notice that everyone at the Gold's Gym I work out at is taking supplements in their shaker cup, right? And I decide, you know what? I'm going to take this 20 grand, hire some manufacturers, and I see this as another business opportunity. I'll hire a director of operations, and y'all go ahead and make this protein powder, because people have protein powder, right? And then there's a marketing team that finds good athletes that look a certain way, and then now I have more money. Like I can, and that's not about. And again, I think that's really logical. I think, I don't think that person would think they're doing anything wrong. I think they would just see it as a business investment. And unfortunately, people like the early us who just don't know the difference feel stupid and stuff like that. So I agree. There's probably people out there maliciously being like, stick it to them and get all the monies, But I think another thing, if we really take it strictly business, it's not necessarily anyone's fault other than the fact that, it's just how it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's plenty of people who aren't doing anything that they think is unethical, or there's plenty of companies that just aren't being unethical as well in the supplement industry. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and there's good supplement companies out there, in my opinion, that are doing a fair amount of education. Sure, it might be a tiny bit misguided, but at least they're making an attempt at it. And I think that's, at least anymore, what I always tell people is, when it comes to supplements, don't take it, because it's rumored to work, or like Eric said, it's going to increase your testosterone 1.3%, or whatever. actually have an educated reason, why you take that supplement,
See,
and I mean, I'm not going to.
I was gonna say, I think that's scarier. Like when you say they're making an effort, it might be misguided. In my opinion, I'm like, you shouldn't say shit unless it's very clearly
Unless you
guided.
know it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is where
Yeah.
I don't think they know that they're misguided. Like there's a
Exactly.
lot. If I go to any 100 personal trainers in the country, that I think it's pretty much. I hope it's common knowledge now. Like creatine is one of the cheapest, most effective. Da da da. And so they'll have all their clients on it and be like, "Why aren't you taking creatine? You're not going to get the gains without it." Like I don't. They really believe that, and they're not killing anybody. But I think the misguided information is more harmful than that person I said that like just doesn't put out anything. Like I would rather you not put out anything till you know. And it's hard because there's shit I said 3 years ago that on the internet very surely, and I'm like, ooh, I kind of don't think that. So you can't stop it because people really do think they're helping. But unfortunately, I would, in my opinion, like 70 to 80% of the fitness professionals putting out stuff really think they're helping, but actually are doing more harm, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I oh, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess, my interpretation of misguided is a little bit different, because I look at myself as misguided back in like 2006, 2007, 2008. And we talked about this a little bit when Eric and I did the podcast way back when on science and basically just the summary being that was old science. At the time, it was actually pretty darn current,
Yeah.
But some of these misguided companies that are putting out, as much as they can good information, it's just old stuff, and
or selective.
We have the luxury of having a PhD and having people that are very passionate about what we do that want to keep current on this stuff, But what I was kind of getting at is, I mean, to this day, I still take supplements. I'm not going to deny it.
And we'll talk about
But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I take it, and some of the reasons aren't even really the reasons that the supplement is actually made. But I take them for my reasons, and they're effective, and I'll put my money out for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I totally agree with you, Andrea. I think philosophically, way more damage and harm is done, and this doesn't just stick to the supplement industry, by well-intentioned people who think they're helping, versus people who are intentionally deceiving others.
Yeah.
I mean, because they have the power of true belief behind them. They like I just saw a thing on YouTube where or on Facebook where a very, very popular YouTuber who was claiming that her cancer was being cured by prayer and a vegan diet.
Oh God.
Died. And her partner, I think they're relatives, is such a strong believer that she thinks it was not because maybe she should have actually had a real treatment or that, eating vegetables cures cancer. She still believes that. She thinks she just wasn't vegan enough. Like she backslid enough. She had too many burgers, and then that's why she went terminal. So that's just to go to show you the power of belief that even when you're literally saying a vegan diet cures cancer, and then the person following a vegan diet dies of cancer, you can't turn your beliefs around. That's how deceptive we can be with ourselves. So imagine the harm that person's doing.
I'm so blown away right now that that's a real thing.
Yeah, that is a real thing. And shit's like that's happened for ages. The misapplication of blind faith to things that are potentially life-threatening or harmful to people. So, yeah, sure, deception's not a good thing, but I think very much so people who, I think most of the time harm is done by people who have good intentions but are woefully uneducated and unknowledgeable.
Yeah. I don't know how to follow. I'm still like, what?
And I've heard positive spins on that too. I've heard positive spins to where people wholeheartedly believe that, they cured their cancer because they got rid of every bad thing in their diet, and then they lived on, strictly fruits and vegetables for a year and a half, And I mean, I think those things are amazing, but the old Brad of, late 90s, 2000s would have probably bought into that and said, oh, well, you know what? That's the whole reason why they cured themselves of cancer, Whereas now the new Brad is just a little bit more it's less naive. Why don't we say that there could have been other things involved with that, that was the actual cure,
Like they also had chemo.
Yeah, or whatever, whatever. Maybe they moved out of the sunlight, and because they couldn't go out in the sunlight because they were so weak and decrepit that the cutting down of, I don't know, ultraviolet rays.
Yeah, we can definitely talk
just
ourselves.
throwing that out there, but there's a lot of other things that could have been involved with that.
We can talk ourselves into and out of everything. I do it to myself all the time. All the time. I know I do. Totally in the middle of it being like, I'm definitely doing this. It still works. Like we talked about in my lifting podcast, right? Like if I can unrack it with an aggressive first, like get out of the hooks, I'm like, then I know I can do it, which I'm doing it and I know I'm doing it, but because it's in my head and it's like a mental crutch. It's not like if I unrack it and it's slow, I won't make the squat. It's just like, why not help myself? And that's the other thing I guess we'd talk about too, is the placebo effect is like, maybe I'm not a very good responder to creatine, but I know if I take it every day, I feel like I'm at least checking that box. And sometimes if I don't sleep enough, I'll take extra caffeine, and whether I need it or not, I don't know, but it makes me feel secure, and it's not going to harm anything.
You're doing something.
Yeah. And so there are some things, like you said, that it's not, there could be a potential downside. Like I thought I was getting more tests and it's actually less. That sucks.
It is possible. Even though they're over-the-counter supplements, you can take such a vast array of supplements that you can actually do yourself harm. Absolutely. And I've seen this, actually firsthand where, being in the healthcare field, it's like, why is this perfectly healthy individual have, liver function tests that are off the freaking chart, And of course, what ends up happening, I have to do a CAT scan of them because there might be something wrong with their liver, right? Well, as I'm picking the patient up, and like I said, I've heard this firsthand. Doctor comes in and says, you're a perfectly healthy individual. Why, I'm not really quite understanding why your liver function tests are so high. And so that's why this gentleman is here to do the CAT scan, But why I'm here, why he's unhooking you here. Let's just kind of briefly talk about, why your liver function test could be high. Do you eat an exorbitant amount of protein, or do you do this or do you do that? And he says, well, I do take a fair amount of supplements. And person was still listing off their supplements as I was pushing them out of their room to go get their CAT scan. It was this, and 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 it was this. And it kind of took me back to a program that I watched 20 years ago, where there was a documentary being done on these people that, were trying to get results from their program. And the person just, it made sense. It was like there was a light bulb that came on. The person that was the expert in the program was like, well, you know what? This thing that you're having to take of all these pills, like Eric was talking about earlier, all has to get processed in your liver. Mm-hmm. And you think your liver might be working a little bit harder than it should to process all of these natural, compounds, over-the-counter supplements that you're taking. And so, I think that actually blindly just taking whatever could actually end up doing yourself a little bit more harm than good.
Yeah.
And from the total magnitude of load that your body has to process. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's funny too, because when you have one problem, if I go back to me, I know you guys, it was I'm trying to get on this gain train, my gains or something. So as a female, right, it was always how do I get lean? It wasn't never how do I get big? It was always because I thought those were completely independent things, right? How do I get lean and just have enough shape that it looks pretty when it's gone? And so therefore, and I didn't do this in an excessive, I guess now I would be seeming, it's okay, so I'm going to the fat loss section of the supplement, and there are, and so therefore I need the red line in the morning because that's what it promises. CLA to make it not be so squishy when I do have fat. Maybe carnitine, was that something I don't know. So it's 3 or 4 things with this.
At one time.
Yeah, back in the day. And it was but I could see how and that's because I was getting my master's degree in exercise physiology. I just learned how to read papers for real. Just started getting on bodybuilding.com, everything. And again, I thought this was me being hardcore about it, or being like, because if I wasn't doing this stuff, I didn't care. But I could see, like, if I don't know, like if I was 19 years old and I went to the fat loss section and there was all these things I could take, why wouldn't I take like the 5 I can afford? When it's like, if they're all supposedly doing the same thing, and if you think fat loss, they probably all have caffeine. They probably, and now you basically are drinking like 15 cups a day of coffee worth of caffeine, and you wouldn't know it. You know what I mean? Like, but that's the thing, right? Is like you think you have this problem, so I'm going to try to get all these things that address that problem, when it's like that is probably the reason you would have health problems, is because you're getting, one of these might do the job, and one part of your body has to process it. But if you throw that dose times a bajillion, then it's like overworking this one function in your body, and then that's when the bad things happen. But you think you're just checking the boxes.
Absolutely. There's a lot of potential for harm if you don't understand how it works and don't have the right philosophy behind it. And I think that's why the way I try to talk about it now is to shift that perspective from thinking there is some magical thing you can take that is going to unlock another avenue of gains, and shifting your perspective from, well, worst case scenario, it's just going to be a waste of money, and if it doesn't work, so what? To the understanding that this is going to make a very small difference at best. Even the supplements that do work, I'm not going to notice the difference if we're talking about non-anabolic, non-drugs, essentially. And therefore, since there is actually a potential for harm, I should wait until there is a preponderance of evidence to support the usage of something, and showing efficacy and safety before I pull the trigger, which is why we recommend like 5 supplements versus I'm going to take all 50 that have even one study on isolated rat muscle. There's potential for harm, and I think that's realizing that's important. And I don't want to be the scaremonger, but I think maybe you should have some healthy fear of putting random compounds that an unregulated company put together in a lab that might put together other stuff, just because I really hope it gives me an amount of gains that I'd never be able to even visually tell. So,
should we talk about real quick how we got out of this rut, or if it was even gradual for y'all or quick?
I think absolutely,
I think that's a good way to go.
For me, it was probably around 2007 or 8, I think, when I became much more sensible. And I think it came down to accepting the fact that I wasn't going to make newbie gains anymore. And once I started actually competing, I realized what my values were. I knew what I wanted to do. I saw kind of my future path. And I was like, right, I don't even want to take a helicopter to the top of the mountain. I like climbing Everest. So let's just figure out, give me some structure here. Okay, here's what is quote unquote natural bodybuilding. That's the guidelines I'm going to stick to, and I'm going to make sure that I'm abiding by everything, and I'm going to just work within that. And then, so I kind of let go of that whole grass is greener on the other side of the fence mentality. I was becoming more educated. I had accepted the fact that I wasn't going to grow like a beginner anymore. And I started to see things. I think 2009 is when D-aspartic acid came out. And then those studies came out a few years later. I think that really cemented it in my brain. I was like, yeah, there really is potential for harm here, In 2007, when I first got on stage, was when I had to go through the process of calling up or sending emails to the NGA, to a private message to a promoter in the INBF, and then to the INBA organizations, and end up talking to, I think it's Andy Bastinto, the head of the NGA, on the phone, and private messaging back and forth with INBF and then the INBA, and just going through the process saying, hey, I don't think they're banned at the time, but they are banned now, back in 2005. And so what are the limitations on me competing, and then getting different answers, and then just having to go through that process and feeling like this odd guilt, like I'm not going to do it yesterday, but just realizing that being short-sighted in the past had bit me in the ass now, I think was a very useful kind of wake-up call for me to be like, I need a different perspective on this, not just maybe the ad isn't lying, so I'm going to try it. kind of perspective. So I think for me, it was that embarrassment, guilt, feeling like I failed myself in terms of thinking long term and being mature, um, accepting the fact that I was no longer a newbie, and getting more educated. I think those things all kind of collated together around 2007, 2008 to change the way I did things.
Okay.
Andrea, why don't you go?
Okay. So after that first prep, when I was taking more caffeine than like a 400-pound man should, luckily I had the unique situation where I was again in an ex-phys lab every day, and when you're in grad school with a very research-based program, you're each other's guinea pigs a lot and each other's subjects, like in different labs or whatever. And I can't remember what study I was going to be a subject in, one of my student homies. And one of the things we had to do was actually report our caffeine intake. And so I actually turned things over and looked at them. And I was just like, shit. Because they were like...
The total milligram amount? I'm curious.
I think it was over 600. Which for me, I weighed like 115, 120.
So you were like 52 kilograms. So you were taking over 10 milligrams per kg. That's awesome. That's hardcore.
It was very serious. Well, because a red line is like 400. And I would take that first thing, and then I'd have like a couple cups of coffee and maybe like another tablet of something. I don't know. Anyways, it was 6 or 7. It was absurd. And then, so that was I decided, I weaned off of that over the next couple months or whatever, right? And then that was before I was even thought I was like wrong about anything. I just thought like, this is a lot considering the paper here says that like average is like 1 to 3 if you have your cup of coffee. I was like, shit. So that was like on my own, like a little bit of like, you idiot. And I was actually when I had very recently gotten off stage for the first time and was in a place to like be comfortable doing caffeine. Because in my brain still, caffeine was for energy. And I was trying, like, I didn't even think caffeine weight loss. I still kind of dissociated it as being like a stimulant that was helping me to get to this prep. Anyways, so that was that. And then I still took all this other inexpensive, like I said, $5 to $20 a month things like the arginine, the CLA, the carnitine, or whatever. And then I graduated. About a year later, I'm starting to watch 3DMJ videos, and I realized, like, this is kind of, all right, they say these things, but I'm already taking all this shit. And, like, I don't really know how to stop because I don't know what's what so much. And then when Berto actually talked to me on the phone, and he was like, okay, and of this list of things you take, you can keep your fish oil, your vitamin D, and your multi, and your creatine, and I want you to stop all the other things. He's like, you don't have to do it like today or whatever. He's like, but I don't think you really, like, in the Berto way, I don't really think that you need those. It's not really helping us. You're spending money on them. I'm like, all right. And then I stopped them all the next day, and nothing happened. And it was,
so
but that's all I needed was
save money. Did you actually save money hiring Berto? Stopping those like 5 supplements?
I mean, probably.
Did that subsidize the cost of coaching?
But I even knew it wasn't necessary or smart, is what I'm trying to say. But it took...
that belief, yeah.
It took someone I very, very, very highly respected and wanted to impress to get me off of it. You know? That's it.
The sun came up anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that my evolution was a lot later than probably both of yours. And mine's kind of weird. It's still this kind of like resentment, yet I'm like the eternal optimist, you know? And so there's always that bit of hope that's still in me, you know?
Yeah.
But I just remember just being duped, and it really started turning me off. You know what I mean? And I remember when nitric oxide was the big thing, you know, and I being the wannabe scientist, you know, it was like, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to buy the from the creator of nitric oxide, the company that makes it. I'm going to do their training regimen. I'm going to take it just like they say, you know, and I'm going to do my electric impedance body fat test, and I'm going to test all my befores and afters and make sure I'm doing it the right way. And lo and behold, spend a whole bunch of money again, and nothing, not even what they promised, And of course, by this time, I'm not getting the newbie gains anymore that I used to get. That kind of made me think that it was those supplements that helped me, and not the newbie gains. So for me, it's been a much slower, evolution, where it was kind of like, okay, well, there's still hope in me, but I am definitely not buying from this company, that company, that company, that company, and that company, And then it was kind of like still kind of evolving to the point to where it's like, shoot, today I still kind of fight things a little bit, because I do kind of suffer from low testosterone. And so it's like, well, you know what? I do believe in this company, and this supplement has been shown to help, and maybe I should take that. And really it's the fear that it's going to bite me in the ass again 3, 4, 5 years later, if I want to compete with Eric and, everybody on stage in 2020, right? That keeps me from it kind of blocks that hope, in a way. And so, yeah, it's kind of a weird dichotomy for me where it's kind of like I do still have hope, but at the same time, I definitely made that shift almost to the negative, to where I look at people that are making supplements and designing supplements, and I'm like, you're full of shit. You pissed me off. Turn you off. Unsubscribe.
That's so crazy that there are training programs to go with supplements. You said that twice.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Believe it or not.
You need to take this while you do these lifts, and that is oh my god.
This rep range, this frequency. There was actually a little bit of
they give you nutritional advice, training advice, and then take our supplement.
And that's very common today. I mean, you look at any butt blaster exercise device that they're selling out there. What do they always say? They always say you should eat this way. So that's at least they understand that it's very the two are kind of need to happen to maximize that.
Yeah, and you can look at that as positive or negative. Like they know their thing doesn't work, so you better get your diet and training in order.
Exactly, and if you didn't, well, that's why.
Or this will help it work.
Or we just want you to get the best results possible. We think our supplement does something, but supplements don't do much, so make sure your training and nutrition's in order.
Hey, it's me again here, guys, as promised, to put a bow on this conversation and give you some takeaways. I'm about to read off quite a bit of stuff right now, so I apologize in advance if I mess up or stumble on my words, but I'm going to give it my best to get all this to you in one go. So let's do it. Point number 1. So I want to underscore what we talked about at the beginning of this episode, and that is the outright importance of your supplementation regimen in general, right? If you're familiar with the muscle and strength nutrition pyramid, this is level 5. In other words, it is the tippity top of the pyramid, which means it's the lowest on the scale of importance after things like adherence, behavior, and lifestyle, after calories and macros and fiber and micros and water and nutrient timing. So, yes, it can matter, but it will not make up for faults in those other areas that are mentioned. If you'd like to watch almost 2 hours of nutritional lectures, go to muscleandstrengthpyramids.com, click on videos, and the whole series is there, including a 20-minute video entirely on supplementation. Seriously, 2 hours of Eric Helms telling you all this stuff. You should totally go check it out. Okay, so point number 2. As a natural coaching team, we'd encourage any of you who would like to stay natural and able to compete in tested meets or shows to, 1, ensure that you're purchasing your supplements from companies of the highest integrity who are willing to provide proof of certifications and evidence that what they say is in their supplement is actually in it and in those exact amounts. And secondly, right, always check the banned substance list of any and all organizations and competitions that you may want to compete in well in advance. Reach out to the promoters if you need to in order to keep yourself eligible as an athlete. Point number 3. If you're interested in doing some more of your own research, a couple of great sites would be examine.com and jissn.com. Examine.com is probably the best website about supplements on the market today. They have a staff of scientists who sift through large bodies of research to give you the best possible overview of the validity, effectiveness, usage, and dosage of each supplement, along with the quality ranking of the research that supports that evidence. And then JISSN.com is the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition website. Every article is completely free from the journal, and their position stands on a variety of nutritional topics are a great place to get a broad overview and explanation of what the research is telling us. And finally, lastly, point number 4. We'd be completely remiss if we didn't talk about the importance of health and longevity in these closing statements, right? Please consult doctors and get blood work performed if you suspect deficiencies or irregularities in your everyday activities or in your athletic development, rather than blindly purchasing supplements that could potentially harm you in the long run. That is it for me. Okay, all these links will be provided in the show notes, so feel free to click around in your podcast app or at our website to find all of those. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you soon.